Have you ever been on a pilgrimage? I don't mean a pilgrimage to a Buc-ee's or to Disney World. I mean a real pilgrimage. If you have, how did it change you? If you haven't, then this episode may break your brain. Welcome to episode 20 of All Roads Lead to Rome. I'm Dr. Bickford, and in this episode we're going to talk about why Catholics go on pilgrimages and about some of the places they go to. We'll also talk about the spiritual importance of pilgrimage. There is also a spiritual importance to you following or subscribing to this podcast. And please tell your Catholic curious friends about this. They may need it more than they know. I and my producer, thank you. A pilgrimage is very different from a vacation. When people go on vacation, they go to explore and to enjoy. When they go on pilgrimage, they go for a holy purpose, either to better worship God, to find a miraculous healing, or to connect with an important religious spot or event. So I can go to Rome, see the Vatican, tour the museums, eat amazing Italian food, and go home knowing it was a wonderful trip. Or I can go to Rome, pray at St. Peter's Basilica, as well as some of the other basilicas in the city, pray near the relics of some of the greatest saints the church has ever known, and then come home a changed person, knowing I have deepened my faith and my connection with the church. Do you see the difference? I once had a monk tell me that certain places hold a greater spiritual energy than others. If Christians have been praying and worshiping in the same spot for hundreds or thousands of years, there is a spiritual effect that lingers and grows with time. I believe that to be true. I got to go on a pilgrimage to Israel when I was in seminary, and touching 3,000-year-old walls, walking on the same roads Jesus did, and sitting in a boat on the Sea of Galilee where the disciples went fishing, all left a profound impact on me. On two separate family trips where we were traveling as tourists, in one of them I got to visit Salisbury Cathedral in England and the other Cologne Cathedral in Germany. At Salisbury, I saw stone steps leading up to the choir that had been worn down by choir members and monks who had gone up and down them daily since the cathedral opened in the year 1330. That left an impact on me. At Cologne Cathedral, I remember sitting with one of my sons in the nave and just taking in the grandeur of a place that was begun in the year 1248. St. Thomas Aquinas was in the city during its early years of construction. The Cologne Cathedral also holds relics of the three wise men that visited Jesus after his birth. And my son and I sat there and we were just overwhelmed at how much prayer, how much hope, how much devotion, and how much pain those walls have heard over the last 1,000 years. In World War II, the British Royal Air Force destroyed much of the city of Cologne, but deliberately and carefully avoided the cathedral. The day we were there, it was filled both with tourists walking around and with pilgrims who were having a profound encounter with God. My experience in Israel and these two cathedrals have left a deep spiritual impact on me, as many other religious sites have. And this is precisely the power of pilgrimage. However, some people will respond and say that it doesn't matter where you worship God. You can have a full encounter with God anywhere at any time. And technically, this is very true. Your relationship with God isn't cut short by not having made a specific trip. But if you really hold that position, I suspect it is because you have never had the experience. And let's be honest. The idea and experience of pilgrimage has been part of the Judeo-Christian history from almost the beginning. Are you familiar with Psalm 122? This is the entire psalm. Quote, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem, built as a city that is bound firmly together. To it the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. For there the thrones for judgment were set up, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. For the sake of my relatives and friends, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. End quote. That is a profound prayer for pilgrims who go to Jerusalem. And at the time of Jesus, people would make pilgrimage to Jerusalem for Passover. In fact, when Jesus was 12 and gets lost in Jerusalem, as recorded in Luke chapter 2, it was because his family made the pilgrimage with a number of other families there for Passover. And there was just confusion when they all started to make their way back. In Judaism today, at both the end of the Passover meal and at the end of Yom Kippur, they say, next year in Jerusalem. Because the goal is to experience these most profoundest of holidays in the place that is the center of the religion. In Acts chapter 2 on Pentecost, we are told that the disciples spoke to the crowd and everyone heard them in their own language. Well, the reason there were so many people there from different lands and different languages was because it was another major pilgrimage time in Jerusalem. And then going forward, all through Christian history, pilgrimage to the Holy Land was a key goal for every Christian who had the means to make one. But after the Muslim conquest of Jerusalem in the year 638, it became very difficult to make the pilgrimage. And it reached the point in the 11th century where entire caravans of pilgrims would either be killed or sold into slavery. And this became a major impetus for the launching of the Crusades. It was to protect the pilgrims. After that whole era ended and it became all but impossible to visit the Holy Land, Rome became a destination for Christian pilgrims. And other places as well. In England, Canterbury Cathedral, where the Archbishop of Canterbury presides, became a destination for English pilgrims. William Chaucer's book, The Canterbury Tales, was completed around the year 1400, and it was a series of stories told by pilgrims as they passed the time, as they made their way as pilgrims to Canterbury Cathedral. Pilgrimage has always been there. After the Protestant Reformation, it was discouraged for Protestants to go on pilgrimage. The Holy Land was still too dangerous, and no one wanted to see their people going to Rome, the center of the Roman Catholic Church. So you don't see this tradition so strongly in Protestantism, but it never went away in the Catholic Church. The reason why I went to Israel when I was in seminary was because it was part of a program to take seminarians from around the country to see the sites important in biblical history. And our guide for the trip was actually an archaeologist. It was meant to be an educational trip, but it became one of profound pilgrimage for just about everyone in the group. One of my big surprises in becoming Roman Catholic was to discover the role of pilgrimages in the Catholic tradition. So, why do people go on pilgrimages? Well, here are several reasons. The first is to have a deeper encounter with God. Pilgrimage is a sacred journey, and the goal of it is to deepen your connection with God. Second, you go on pilgrimage for spiritual growth. It can focus the soul and the imagination towards holiness. It makes the events of so long ago and so far away much more tangible and visceral. Third, people go on pilgrimage seeking grace and healing. Many pilgrimage sites are associated with miracles and healing. We'll have a whole episode on miracles soon, but I will describe a profound site for that in just a moment. The fourth reason people go on pilgrimage is for penance and forgiveness. Some pilgrimages are made as an act of penance, seeking God's forgiveness. And these can be the most profound of all pilgrimages. A fifth reason is for tradition. History buffs will travel to locations of important historical events, places where governments were established or battles fought, or even places of great discovery and invention. An aspect of religious pilgrimage can be similar. It can more tangibly connect you with the people and places from far back in the history of the church. I hope this is making sense. And even more so, I hope it is inspiring you to want to make a pilgrimage yourself. Well, if you do, where would you go? Let me share with you a few of the major destinations in the world today. And please remember, this is just a small sampling of what all the amazing possibilities are. And the first one is obvious. It's the Holy Land. It's Israel. It's the land of the Bible. The Sea of Galilee, Nazareth, the home of Peter in Capernaum, the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, where the crucifixion and then the resurrection took place, the Via Dolorosa, which is the Road of Sorrows, which is where Jesus carried the cross to Calvary, the Mount of Olives, the Garden of Gethsemane, the Temple Mount, and just so many more places. It is so humbling and such a powerful experience to visit these places and contemplate what happened in the very spots where you find yourself standing. Another pilgrimage site is Rome. At Vatican City, you have St. Peter's Basilica, which is built over the grave of St. Peter himself, which you can visit. There's also the Vatican Museum with staggering artwork, the Sistine Chapel, which was painted by Michelangelo, and St. Peter's Square, which is shown on TV so often, and more. When home, the Pope gives public audiences every Wednesday, and you can see him in person. This is the heart of the Roman Catholic Church, and home to the Pope, regardless of what country or what part of the world he was from. And not only is there Vatican City, but you can visit 3 other basilicas in Rome. There's the Basilica of St. John Lateran, which was started in the 4th century, and it's called the Mother Church of Christianity. This particular episode is being recorded the day after the feast day for St. John Lateran, which is November 9th. And it's the cathedral where the Bishop of Rome has his episcopal chair, and the Bishop of Rome is the Pope. So not only is he Pope of the whole church worldwide, but one of his other tasks, jobs, is to serve as the bishop for the city of Rome, because that's how the job started. Another basilica is the Basilica of St. Mary Major. It has 5th century mosaics and a relic of the manger from Christmas. And then there's the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls. Outside the walls because it was outside the original part of the Roman city during the empire. And St. Paul outside the walls contains the grave of the Apostle Paul. There's so many other places to visit. Can you imagine attending a mass in any of these basilicas that connect to the earliest years of the faith? Just wow. Another very famous pilgrimage destination is known as the Camino de Santiago, which means the way of St. James. Santiago has long been believed to be the burial place of St. James the Great, which distinguishes him from St. James the Lesser, an unfortunate name. St. James the Great is one of Jesus' disciples and is one of the sons of Zebedee. So when you hear of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, this is that James, not the other James. The destination of the pilgrimage is the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela in Galicia in northwest Spain. There's a vast network of routes that people can take from all corners of Europe to get there. Some of these routes are a few hundred kilometers long, others are over 1,000. And the vast majority of the people walk the route. And today, several 100,000 people make the pilgrimage every year. The feast day for St. James is July 25th, but people make the pilgrimage at all times of the year. Some will go from hotel to hotel as they make their way. Others will sleep in fields. It runs the gamut. People meet others as they walk, and new friendships are formed. People walk the route in prayer, and when they reach the destination, they have a profound encounter with God. And it's the Camino is a very famous pilgrimage. There are many Caminos in several parts of the world. There's a mini Camino in Florida in the United States. There's one in Australia, and there's a number of others around the world for people that can't travel all the way to Spain. The next site I would like to share is Lourdes in France. It's located in the Pyrenees Mountains that form the border between France and Spain. In 1858, there were a series of apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary to a peasant girl named Bernadette Soubirous. Now, Marian apparitions will also get their own episode, probably several. If you come from a non-Catholic background, they may be easy to dismiss, but I promise you that there is far more to them than you may know. Far more. At one of Mary's appearances at Lourdes, she introduced herself to Bernadette as the Immaculate Conception. Bernadette, being an uneducated child, had trouble relaying this to others because she had never heard the term before. She didn't know what it meant. After the appearances ended and word spread, people started visiting the site, and miraculous healings began to take place. So many so that Pope Pius X asked for the creation of what became known as the Lourdes Medical Bureau. And it is supervised by doctors, not by clerics, and it investigates whether miraculous healings have taken place. And you may think, well, all the doctors are Catholic, and so the deck is stacked, and they're not. Most of them are atheists. And of the thousands of cases that have been presented to them, more than 70 have been confirmed by secular doctors as medically miraculous. And there are far more than that. I have a personal acquaintance with someone who was miraculously cured of cancer on a pilgrimage to Lourdes, but he never reported it to the medical bureau because he felt somehow doing so would be disrespectful to God. And I think, as I've shared, at the time of this recording, I'm a newly invested Knight of the Order of Malta. And once a year, the American Association, to which I belong, makes a pilgrimage to Lourdes with medical patients who are seeking miraculous cure. Malta associations from all over the world go there as well, so that these patients have the chance at a miraculous cure. I haven't gone yet, but everyone who I've spoken to who has gone speaks of it as a life-changing experience. And these are the helpers of the sick, not the sick themselves. The experiences for the sick themselves are even more profound. It's a life-changing experience to go there. The next pilgrimage site is another one of a Marian apparition. It's in Fatima, Portugal. In 1917, Mary appeared to 3 shepherd children over the course of 6 total apparitions. There are the famous secrets of Fatima, which we don't have time for in this episode. But there was an event that does merit mention. Word got out that the apparitions were happening, and on October 13th, 1917, a crowd of somewhere between 30,000 and 100,000 people had gathered. Some were there for spiritual reasons, but many, including lots of journalists, were just there to see if anything would happen. And what many witnesses described afterward was that there was a period of light rain. After the rain ended, the clouds broke, and the sun appeared, but it was more opaque than normal. And it was spinning in the sky, and the people there could see how it was spinning. And as it spun, it was casting different colors of light in all directions. And then the sun appeared to be racing towards the earth. But then it stopped and it zigzagged for a bit and then returned to its normal position and its normal look. The witnesses also reported that their wet clothes from the rain were suddenly dry. Now, if you're not a person of faith, you can immediately dismiss this as being crazy, made up, or some sort of mass hallucination. But there were tens of thousands of eyewitnesses that cannot be dismissed. There's a lot more to the story, but I'll just leave you pondering the miracle of the dancing sun. At the 100th anniversary of the apparition in 2017, Pope Francis made a special visit to the sanctuary there. Even more striking is that on May 13th, 1981, 64 years to the day after the first apparition, Pope John Paul II was shot in the square at the Vatican and almost killed. He survived because he turned at the last second to someone holding a photo of Our Lady of Fatima. That turn caused the bullet to hit him in a place that didn't immediately kill him, whereas if he hadn't turned, he would have immediately died. And he credited the Lady of Fatima with saving him. And on a visit to the shrine a year later in 1982, he gave the bullet that hit him to the shrine. And they wanted to put it by the statue, and they found an opening in the crown that they didn't know was there, almost as if it was waiting for this. And they placed it there, and it remains there to this day. That's Fatima. There is another major pilgrimage site related to Mary, and it's in Guadalupe, Mexico. Mary appeared 4 times to Juan Diego, a poor and uneducated man. And she did so throughout the year 1531. She asked him to have a church built. And so he went and reported it to his bishop. And the bishop, not sure if it was true, but afraid to dismiss it, requested a sign. And so when Juan told Mary that the bishop was asking for a sign, she gave him roses that do not grow in Mexico. And so when he went to the bishop, and he opened up his tilma, his cloak, to take out the roses to give him, he discovered that her image was on the tilma, on the cloak itself. The tilma still exists and is in the shrine in Guadalupe. After 500 years, it's shown no signs of deterioration. And the image is smooth, as if it was a photograph. It wasn't painted. There were no paintbrush marks. They're not three-dimensional. It's just like a flat photograph. And in close examination, and in the eyes of Mary, you can see the reflection of Juan Diego. And the stars in the image around her coincided with how the sky looked on December 12th, 1531, the day this happened. Science cannot explain any of this. But its effect was real. Over the next 10 years, between 8 million and 10 million people converted. And the Aztec practice of human sacrifice came to an end. It is now the most visited Catholic shrine in the world. It's staggering to think that that whole part of Spanish Central America was converted so quickly. Many people who study theology and history look at these years of the 1530s, and they look at the work of Martin Luther and John Calvin and the other Protestant leaders who were working to break away from the church at that time, and yet little attention is paid to the up to 10 million people who converted so quickly in Spanish America. I was one of them. It's not talked about in non-Catholic circles. It's too hard to absorb and comprehend. I live in the northeast part of the United States, an area called New England. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the Basilica of the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., in the United States. It's the premier Marian shrine in the country. This shrine has more than 80 chapels and oratories, and the main nave, the main part of the church, is breathtaking. It's right on the campus of the Catholic University of America. St. John Paul II has visited the shrine, St. Teresa of Calcutta, Pope Benedict XVI, and others. It currently receives more than 1 million visitors a year. And again, coming up as a Protestant in my life, I heard a lot about and visited the National Cathedral of the Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C., but never even heard of the shrine. In 2022, 1 month after my mother died, and I was preparing for reception into the church, I happened to be in Washington for a conference and was able to leave for a few hours to visit the shrine. I returned to that conference to attend a formal dinner that evening, and I was so overwhelmed. It was hard to participate in anything or even explain my experience to my colleagues. I just sat there in a stupor, I think, for most of the dinner. There are so many other places of pilgrimage. The Christus Rex pilgrimage in Victoria, Australia. The sanctuary of St. Rose of Lima in Peru. Nishizaki Hill in Nagasaki, Japan. The Valanjani in Tamil Nadu in India. That shrine draws over 2 million pilgrims every year in September. And there's so many other places. Now, you may have found some of these places and some of the descriptions I've shared to be difficult, confusing, or maybe even far-fetched. If so, it's probably because we are trained in the West to think that spiritual matters are personal and do not impact the material world. And that's a holdover from Greek philosophy that got into some heretical groups in the early church like the Gnostics. They lost the intellectual debate, but some of these issues resurfaced in the Protestant Reformation in the guise of science. In this thinking, there was a rejection of the supernatural and the miraculous in the religious life. Which honestly, it takes out all the good stuff and the fun stuff. I'm going to have a religious belief in God, but nothing miraculous, nothing supernatural? What do you do with that? The classic example of this is the American president Thomas Jefferson. He wrote the Declaration of Independence, and when he became president later, he took a Bible and literally cut out all of the supernatural and miraculous references and was basically left with Jesus walking around and teaching moral lessons. It's now referred to as the Thomas Jefferson Bible. Good moral teaching, but nothing miraculous, nothing supernatural, nothing divine. And so many people today, either consciously or unconsciously, subscribe to this notion. And if you do, then the first question to ask yourself is, if Jesus really performed all of the miracles that the Bible says he did, and if he rose from the dead like the Bible says he did. If your answer is no, well, then this is where you need to start. You need to come to the Christian faith and see that Jesus is who he said he is, and that he did what the Bible says he did. If your answer is yes, then the next step is to ask yourself if miracles stopped with Jesus, or if they continued. After all, we read of a number of miracles performed by the apostles in the book of Acts and the rest of the New Testament. Are those miracles real? Did Peter raise Tabitha from the dead in Acts 9 or not? If the answer is yes, then let's continue. Are the miracles that are recorded in church history real or not? Did Polycarp's body not burn as he was burned at the stake? Was Justin Martyr right in recording healings and exorcisms in the 2nd century? Did St. Gregory Thaumaturgus heal the sick or not? And did he move a mountain through prayer in order to build a church or not? Did St. Martin of Tours raise a catechumen from the dead or not? Was St. Augustine right in his recording of over 70 miracles in his book, The City of God, or not? And these things all just happened in the first 400 years of the church. I could go on through every century, up to and including this one, where miracles take place, God intervenes. For Roman Catholics, all of this makes sense. There is no contradiction. There is no inconsistency in living in a world governed by physics and rational empiricism on the one hand, and a world where God occasionally, for reasons known only to him, chooses to intervene and overrule the laws that he himself established. My favorite line in the Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens, is when Rey and Finn meet Han Solo and assume that everything they'd ever heard about him and the Force and about Luke Skywalker were just myths. And he looks at them with almost pity and says, it's true. All of it. My friends, when it comes to the stories of the faith that I've been sharing today, it's true. All of it. And when you have a chance in your life to go to a place where one of those miracles took place and join the millions or tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of people who have gone there over the years for prayer and for healing, well, it's a life-changing experience. And it is the very definition of pilgrimage. You do not go to see, you go to be changed. You do not go to say that you have been there, you go to deepen your walk with God. So, what will be on the test for today? The world and the faith are so much bigger than you can imagine. So much more has happened over the centuries than you can process. Places where some of these things have happened have become pilgrimage sites, and people from all over the world travel to them. For some, it's to experience a miracle. For others, it's to connect closer to God. And for others, it's to have their faith restored. People have been going to many of these places for centuries, and they do so because of the things that people seek are actually found. If you need help to believe in the miraculous, I encourage you to become a pilgrim and find out for yourself. Because the world is full of pilgrims who have traveled to these places, and no matter where they have gone, they have all discovered that all pilgrimage roads lead to Rome.